Wan Hazmer, what is your favorite game?
My favorite game is Day of the Tentacle. So I was one of the lucky Malaysians to actually get a PC to play when I was 5 years old. I think I got a small little Atari console. I cannot remember specifically what was the console model, but I also got a little PC. It's more like a floppy disk drive connected to the PC. It was an Atari, if I recall. And yeah,
Atari 2600 maybe?
something like that. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a 2600. Was it ST or something like that? But I can't remember for the life of me. But anyway, because my father he knows that IT will be a big thing in the future, and for the same reason he didn't get me any game consoles per se, like the NES or the SNES, because those are just for playing games. So he was hoping that by buying a computer, I would also learn to write documents, create posters, and all that. But obviously, I used the PC more for playing games. and I do recall, some sweet memories of me playing this game called Ghostbusters. And my cousins and I, we are very close knit. We used to play. So Ghostbusters had two parts. One is the driving part, where you have to drive to the scene, and the other part was to capture the ghost itself. And I recall when we were driving, we would all jump to the bed and jump up and down and shout "Hantu, hantu," which means ghost in Malay. Which is, I don't think that's how you should play Ghostbusters, but but yeah, I do recall those kind of memories of me playing those PC games in a very wrong way. And then came the NES and SNES era, and also the Mega Drive. So this was the one where I tried my best to get my father to buy me some consoles from Toys R Us, but he will never get it for me because PCs are more important or useful. So I would actually go to my cousin's house to play all those games like Mario, and I also played Sonic in their house, and I became a huge Sonic fan. Like, who's not a Sonic fan, right?
No, naturally.
Naturally.
If Dave was still here, he might take your ear off on that, maybe.
Oh, really? Yeah. Sonic. Yeah, he had the Sonic figure, right, in the back of the cabinet or something like that. But so I usually go to my cousin's house to play a lot of more console games while I'll be stuck at home. If I couldn't go out, then I would play my PC games. And the CPU that I had, it was a bit evil. It had a lock mechanism. So a physical lock mechanism. So my father only unlocked it during the weekends. So I do fondly remember myself waiting for the weekend to play X-Wing. A lot during the 90s. Yeah. And yeah, X-Wing was the bomb. So recently Star Wars Squadrons came out, right? So I was, I while playing, I was giggling like a fangirl the whole time. It's really an amazing game. So I just go to my cousin's house to play console games. I play PC games in my house, and that's where I discovered a lot of point-and-click adventures, right? So apart from flight simulations, also I was really deep into point-and-click adventures because I love cartoons, basically, and to be able to play a cartoon was interesting, and also I love mathematics, so I love logical puzzles, right? So started off with like Monkey Island, then went to Full Throttle, and then the Tentacle. Really, really amazing games. And then The Dig. Also played a lot of Return to Zork as well. Return to Zork, yeah, Return to Zork. Yeah, that was quite a crazy game. And yeah, since then, I think when I reached 16 years old, so I played the other Tentacle when I was 15, I think. And it was only when I was 16 years old that this is a bit silly of me, but I only realized that humans made games when I was 16. So I was like, because we don't have any game design education or game development education in Malaysia at the time. So games were like magic to me, it just appears and I just play it. And that's about it, It was only when I was 16 years old when I started to develop some critical thinking and trying to, criticize games for being too difficult, banging the controller. I remember Maui Mallard. It was for Mega Drive. It was Donald Duck being a tourist and being a ninja at the same time. That was quite a classic game. And I remember screaming at that game with Battletoads as well. And that was the time when I realized, there are people actually making these games. So I started to dig deeper into the mindset of the game developer when they make this game. So, for example, if the level is very difficult, or if the logical puzzle is as such that I would question myself, why did the developer make it in such a way to make it like this? For example. So that's when I thought to myself, maybe I should be a game designer.
So, what other PC games were you sort of into at that time besides, Ghostbusters and point and click stuff?
Wow, yeah, like I said, X-Wing. It's a lot. I mean, Prince of Persia being the other one. Oh my god, there was a game called Privateer. It was something like a mining space colony adventure game. Seriously, I can't remember. I do play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Okay,
like where you control the dragons. What else? My God, there's so many PC games. But if you talk about Mega Drive as well, I do remember Maui Mallard, Battletoads, Sonic, Toe Jam and Earl.
naturally.
Naturally. Yeah, wow. If you ask me to recall all of this, it's difficult. There's really, really a lot, a whole list of them. I also played, one of my favorite games was also Another World as
Yes,
well.
that was,
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, was it on the Mega Drive or was it on the PC? I think it was on the Mega Drive.
it was on the PC anyway.
Oh, it was PC only. Okay, so I played on the PC.
I don't know if it was necessarily PC only, but I know it was on the PC anyway. I know it got like a re-release like a year or two ago anyway.
Yeah, the remastered version, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yes. But I think I played the Mega Drive version because I remember my cousins playing it on the Mega Drive. So I think it was a Mega Drive. Oh, sorry, Mega Drive in the Western world is called Genesis, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, Sega Genesis. Okay, sorry.
Like we're in the Mega Drive speaking world, so you're free to call Mega Drive if you want.
Okay, cool. The culture differences.
if that's not more evident, if you need more evidence of that, you just need to look at how different the SNES looks in Europe and elsewhere compared to North America.
Oh yes, I mean even some of the point and click games that I play, right? We can get into that later, but a lot of American culture and know-how of American culture or Western culture to know how to solve the puzzles as well. So as a Malaysian, it was quite it could be quite challenging sometimes to understand how to solve things. Oh, and I do have something to admit, and I think it's the first time I'm admitting it openly in public. And it was that for the first few PC games that I played, it was the pirated version of the game. And the reason why that is because it was super, super difficult to get original games in Malaysia at the time. These pirated games were sold in malls, in official game shops. It was absurd to be honest. Yeah.
I can't
And
frankly believe they're being sold in game shops. I frankly
yeah,
can't.
openly. Yeah, the police will not catch them. Yeah, for sure. And people are just buying it openly. And even if you wanted to buy an original game, it was so difficult. So the favorite game I'm going to talk about today, which is Dead of the Tentacle, admittedly, the first version that I played, it was the floppy disk version. It was the pirated version of the game, and I felt so bad that I bought the original CD-ROM after that.
You say it was difficult to get, proper original games in Malaysia at the time. Was it because they were hard to come in, or was it because they were expensive?
Both. So because they were expensive, the shop owners know that no one will buy them,
Okay.
right? So just imagine this. So the price of an original game, obviously in US dollars or pounds, it'll be around, I guess, 40 or 50.
Yeah.
Right, around that price range. In Malaysia, they will just convert the currency. So it's usually 3 times or to 4 times more expensive. So it's like as if you're taking out, let's say in UK terms, it's like you're taking out around £150 to £200 for a game based on your salary. So without the, just talking about numbers here. So can you imagine taking like 1/20th of your salary for a game? Yeah. So that was, for the shop owners and also for the customers, it was really, really tough to buy an original game when a pirated game costs only 5 to 10 ringgit, which is around £2 to £5. Yeah, and they took a lot of effort actually. They actually photocopied the manual and bundled it with the floppy disk. So back in the old days, during the in the 90s, the PC they used to have this anti-piracy like wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to spin the wheel according to the symbol on the game, and then you have to mention what is the color or the number or whatever, right? So they even photocopied that thing. It's really crazy.
I mean, you can't help but admire the commitment, the effort, at least.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh my god! So of course, at the time I was young, so I didn't. And at the time as well, I wasn't aware of the concept of that game developers exist. Right? I only realized it when I was 16. So it was when I reached 16 when I felt guilty about all this. Looking past the economy, looking past the demand and all this. I'm like, why am I buying games for such a cheap price, and the money doesn't even flow to the developers? So, and that's why I actually bought original games starting from that onwards. So, and the other Tentacle, I got the CD-ROM version as well, which is original, but super expensive though.
Tim Schafer will be rocking up at your door once this episode comes
no.
out and looking for money with interest.
I'm willing to give. I bought the remastered version. I bought the CD-ROM. So if you want me to pay for the floppy disk version, sure thing, Tim.
If not Tim Schafer, definitely Disney will anyway.
Oh no, I shouldn't have done this confession in public. But yeah, to be honest, that was how Malaysia was. But now we have Steam and all this, so the price is now regionally based, is regionally adjusted. So you don't have to take out 1/20th of your money of your salary to buy a game now. So when I realized that people make games, I thought I want to be part of this. And the problem was at the time during the 90s, there was no official education for game development in Malaysia. So I thought that in order for me to get into game development, the next best thing would be to learn how to create software. And so I went into a college that taught programming. So I had a degree, Bachelor of Honors in science in computing, right? And they had this very weird 3+0 training program or something like that. So I didn't have to go to the UK to get my Staffordshire University Bachelor of Science. So that was really, really weird setup. So after that, then I went to advertising. And even during college, although there were no game projects per se, but I forced games into the projects. Like for example, one of the college projects was to create a software that teaches language, right, a foreign language. And a lot of my other classmates, they actually created like a very visual basic gray color window with buttons and all that. But I created an entire Macromedia Director game where you control a ninja and you have to choose the correct shuriken to hit the enemy with a Japanese character on it. So, and even for advertising as well, when I went to the advertising, I also kind of forced game solutions to the clients as well. And we eventually got a gig with Discovery Channel. Discovery Channel, actually, they were making a documentary on the history of games called iVideo Game. And we were the official creators of the Flash game on their website. So that was quite an honor. Then when I was 27 years old, I left the advertising agency to just make my own games because now I know how to make games. So why not I just try to get into it? And there was this contest called Jay's Games. It was like a Flash, like casual game competition. So I thought I brought in my cousins who I'm very close knit with and also my friend. And we created two games. One is a very casual strategy game because it's casual games competition, right? So I was thinking it would be interesting to take very, very difficult genres, like hardcore genres, and turn them into casual games. Because at the time I was really, really into arcade games. So I went to the arcades a lot, played Street Fighter, Daytona, Virtual Cop, House of the Dead, and all this. So it was very weird because at the time, it was 2007, and the casual boom kicked in. And it was puzzling to me at the time because casual games have always been in the arcades, right? Where you just pick up a gun and you know how to shoot. There's a steering wheel, so you know how to drive. So I thought of taking all these hardcore genres and turning it into casual games. The first game that we created was a casual game based on the strategy game genre. And I thought the most casual strategy game would be pool or snooker, right? And we represented every ball with a different military unit. So a smaller ball is a soldier, the bigger ball would be a tank or something like that. So that was the ball. So there was a bit of ball physics in Flash. And the second game that we created was a casual shmup. Because at the time I was really, really into the Toho series, a Japanese independent shmup game, right? And I thought to myself, why not we make this casual as well? Which is a bit weird because it's usually a hardcore genre. So usually in a shmup, if you die, it's usually the game designer's fault because the game designer just pushes a lot of bullets to you and you have to avoid them. But in the casual game that we created called The Last Canopy, what happened was the player can choose either to absorb the enemy attack or to shoot. So when you're absorbing, you can't shoot. When you're shooting, you can't absorb. So if you absorb too much, then you will not be shooting enough, and then there'll be more enemies coming to the screen. If you shoot too much, then you will not have enough firepower at the end, near the end of the level. So if you die, it is your fault. So that's how I changed a hardcore genre into a casual genre. And we were very blessed because a lot of the casual community liked the game. And for the first snooker-like Flash game, we won third place in the global competition. And for The Last Canopy, we won first place. And that was in 2008. And I thought to myself, as an independent developer, if I were to continue doing this, I might not grow enough because I'll just be making games that I want to make and not necessarily learning from other people. Hence, I thought of choosing between two big industries. One is the Western industry, and the other one is the Japanese industry. And I bought a lot of game design books at the time. They were very expensive, but I bought them anyway. And there were a lot of books based on the Western game design philosophies, right? So I was thinking like, wow, how did the Japanese actually make all these amazing games like Final Fantasy, Xenogears, and Katamari Damacy, and all this? Because, Katamari Damacy, how the heck do you even create something like that?
Takahashi, there's no other explanation needed. It's just Keita Takahashi.
I'll have what you're having, Keita. So So I was thinking like maybe Japan is like a black box, right? You have to get into the country, then only you know how things work there. So I decided to go for Japan. In 2008, at the time, I knew very little Japanese. I only know some phrases from anime, right?
I mean, like, who doesn't
And
know Japanese from anime anyway? It's basically the the main option to learn Japanese besides Durango anyway. So
yeah, bakayaro, yeah, it's all those where the main character will just shout. Those are the phrases that I remember, but they are rarely useful in real life. so, so I thought to myself, okay, I'll just jump to Japan, and okay, let's try learning the language first, because I think to be a game designer, I need to present to people, right? I need to present to people ideas, and I need to convince them to work on the ideas. So I went through a Japanese language learning course for around 1.5 years. And that was quite an interesting experience because it was actually a school to get you ready for a university, right? So if you want to enroll into a Japanese university, you have to go through this 1.5 years first and then pass certain tests then or exams, then only you can get enrolled in those universities. So I was actually learning mathematics and history in Japanese as well. So it was super hardcore. And I already had a goal when I entered Japan because I wanted to get into the game industry, right? So I wrote a 10-page proposal in in English first. So I wrote a 10-page proposal in English, and then I decided to whenever I learn new words, I would translate the 10-page document slowly into Japanese. And after the 1.5 year course, I completed the translation of the English proposal and I sent it to various companies. And after that, I got into Square Enix.
and then from Square Enix, you obviously then were on lead designer Final Fantasy 15,
Yep.
and it was just Final Fantasy 15, right?
Actually, for lead game designer, yes. Oh, and also Monster of the Deep, Final Fantasy 15, which is a weird VR fishing game.
Yes, that's right. I remember
PlayStation
that.
VR. Yeah. But I was also game designer for Final Fantasy Type Zero.
Oh, that's right. How could I forget
Yeah,
Type
yeah,
Zero? I'm such
yeah.
a
PS.
oh,
Oh, come on, no, no. And and by the way, that game wasn't localized, I think. So only when it became HD, it was localized, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I actually worked on the Japanese version of the PSP version of the game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But actually, my first project was Versus 13.
That's right. Well,
Here we go, the controversy.
yeah. The more controversy I think of is, do I still consider versus 13 to be 15? No, that sort of thing. I don't even know anymore.
Don't worry, the numbering system is not as confusing as Kingdom Hearts. So
That's true.
But yeah, it was quite a crazy experience because upon during the first 2 weeks of my work there, I already had to talk to Nomura-san, so it was really nerve-wracking. It was a very nervous 6 months, I would say.
Damn, like what was it like, sort of working around with people like Tetsuya Nomura and Hajime Tabata?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, the directors in. I mean, I also worked with Toriyama-san of FF13 as well because I was working very shortly for the pre-production of Lightning Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they are very different people, which is amazing. And I have spoken with Yoshi-P before, with Yoshida-san of FF14. Yeah, they're all very, very different directors. And not only that, in my team, there was also the art director of Final Fantasy X, which was Naura-san, art director of Final Fantasy 13, which was Kamikoku-san. So yeah, I worked there for 8 years, but in all the 8 years, it felt so surreal. It's like I was in a dream. I'm like sitting beside all these legends, and I seriously don't know what I was doing there. It's like, why am I here?
It was sort of like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and having all these sort of creators and auteurs working with you alongside you and stuff like that.
Yeah, the people who made the magic, right? The magic
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, and I'm beside them, like, wow. So it was a very very surreal experience.
Oh no, I can only imagine. Um, when you made the decision then to leave Square Enix and set up Metronomik with your cousin then, like what was that like? Sort of making that. I've asked you this before, at Res last year, but like that transition from AAA to indie, it's a very big leap, let's say.
Mm. It's it's it was something that
Especially,
I've always wanted.
especially from a company as well as big as Square Enix.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that I was thinking of the whole entire time, actually. So just to explain the context a bit, my cousin Daim, who's now my co-founder now, he's this very very amazing artist and creator. He was concept artist for Street Fighter Five, and also what was it? Illustrator for Street Fighter 4 and animator for Final Fantasy 14. So the two of us, because he was in Japan as well, so we meet every 2 Saturdays or so in this place called Ikebukuro, and we always discuss, about games that we want to make, and also through Square Enix, I actually had the opportunity to do even PR work, which is very rare for a foreigner to do in Square Enix, to be the face of Square Enix, right? And I get to travel to the US, to the UK, and also to Malaysia as well. And it was at the time when I realized that Malaysia's talents were getting better and better. When I left Malaysia at the time, it felt like game industry felt like a really far away thing for Malaysians at the time. But when I returned to Malaysia just for PR purposes in 2014 and 15, I realized that a lot of game companies were sprucing up, and there were a lot of talents, and Daim, because he's a bit like a sort of like a freelancer as well, right? So he was like, "Come on, Hazmer, quit Square Enix and just come on, let's make our own games, man. come on."
Egging you
Like,
on.
yeah. So I was like, "Oh, wait, let me just finish FF15 first, okay?" And then after FF15 finished, and Tabata-san came to me and said, "Okay, let's make a VR fishing game." And like, wow, that sounds interesting. Okay, let's do that. And then Daim's like, "What? VR fishing game? Come on, man." But yeah, and then I told Tabata-san when I went to Malaysia at the time, I was already told him that I think I want to go back to my home country and nurture the game industry there. And yeah, so it wasn't that hard of a decision to make. But although I think Square Enix is still, I still have it in my heart. The people in Square Enix, the games and all that. Yeah, still love working there actually.
Let's talk of your favorite game, Day of the Tentacle.
Yep.
You mentioned how you were playing these sort of point and click games of the time before Day of the Tentacle came out, so the likes of Monkey Island and stuff like that. There,
Yep.
Like, was there any others you were going for at the time? Like, not necessarily just LucasArts stuff, like Indiana Jones or Star Wars, but others at the time as well.
One game that I fondly remembered was Toonstruck. Yeah. I played Toonstruck, the one with Christopher Lloyd. You control Christopher Lloyd in a cartoon world that he has created. And yeah, I really like Toonstruck as well because first of all, it is a bit of a how is it, like a more like a resting point from all these LucasArts games, right? So you have all this line of LucasArts games, and suddenly you have this one very weird game called Toonstruck, and also like I said, Return to Zog as well, right? So so the non-LucasArts games were also quite fun. But yeah, I think I have very fond memories with Toonstruck, for the very fact that first of all, I love Christopher Lloyd and all the voice actors in there as well. And the second thing is, seriously, the whole entire concept of understanding cartoon physics to solve a puzzle it really struck a chord with me. Yeah.
In terms of specifically Dave Tentacle, like,
Yep.
what was it that made it stand out to you to say, I want to play this game and I want to play it right now, basically?
Oh my God, that's a very hard question to answer. There's so many things I love about the Tentacle, but okay, I think the first catch was that I actually love Back to the Future. Back to the Future is still, until today, my favorite movie, right? And I used to like Back to the Future 2, but now I like 1 and 2 equally. But anyway, so I love time traveling, but at the same time, I do not like time traveling stories that are too, how would I do this? Or how would I say this? Like a global crisis, right? The reason why I love Back to the Future was it felt so personal. Even though there are some time paradoxes here and there, they might affect the world, and there's a huge time machine and all that. But ultimately, it's about the story of Marty McFly and Doc Brown, right? And Day of the Tentacle was exactly like that. So you have a time machine, and there's a lot of time traveling puzzles. But ultimately, it's just about these three very weird misfits. Right? You don't even know how they got together in the first place, but it's like the whole entire feeling of that mismatch between the character and the world, and how everything just gels together very nicely as puzzles. Because its core strength is the time traveling aspect of it, right? And it played its strength very, very well. Oh man, there's so many things I have to say about the Tentacle. Wow.
I'm just gonna say up front, I've just had a massive epiphany realization of sorts that is completely unrelated to the topic we're talking about, at least in terms of Day of the Tentacle. I've just realized that Back to the Future is basically the 80s equivalent of today of Rick and Morty, and I cannot believe it's taken me God knows how long to realize that.
What the heck? Okay. Okay,
I don't know why I just realized that.
Looks like I'm not the only slow learner here. Oh gosh. Yeah, Rick and Morty rocks.
Sorry, go on. Because if I just keep going, it's just going to stop my plans.
So for different adventure games, I always like them for different reasons, right? Monkey Island felt like it felt huge, I guess, especially at the time, for the time. Full Throttle made it a bit more bite-sized, so you only go through several locations, and then you just solve the puzzle there, and then that's it. Then you're done with that location, and you go to the next location. So it felt like a progressing story, right? And that's what impressed me about Day of the Tentacle, because Day of the Tentacle is like the best of both worlds. The world is actually very huge, but it's divided into bite-sized structure, not in terms of its physical space, but in terms of the puzzles, right? I don't recall that Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman, when they were talking about the game, they kind of mentioned that all three characters were playable from the start. They were planning to do that, and they decided to unlock the characters slowly one by one, and I thought that was a really great idea. So it felt very manageable, At the same time, the physical space, I thought it was very, very smart. It's the same physical space times 3, right? It is the same house, but 100 years in the past, or was it 500? I forgot. But yeah, and then 100 years in the future, and then after that, the present time, right? So I thought that was really, really genius to use the same landmark and to make the game feel huge, but with the same space.
It sort of reduces sort of the workload the team had to do.
Yeah.
But also, save, actual technical capabilities of, this is going to sound so strange, but like save sort of the technical capabilities as well, like stuff like memory and storage and stuff like that there, especially for, using things like floppy disks and whatnot.
And it's not only memory space in terms of the technical aspect, it's also memory and storage for the user.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because you don't have to remember so many locations. You just remember there's a house, there's a living room, there's a attic. So it's like, there are very few locations that you need to remember. And I think that was the genius of it, right? And even though the locations are the same, but they're all similar. So that's where the time traveling part comes in. And that's where the genius comes in, right? Where you have to affect the space in a different way. You have to chop the cherry tree to make the tree disappear in the future so that you can control Laverne in the future. It's just a very clever way of using the same space to solve puzzles, and it makes the game so much more fun and manageable. I usually feel a lot of stress when I play point and click games sometimes, right? It's because you have to remember where things are. There's a lot of traveling to do and all that, but the other Tentacle has reduced a lot of that stress. And the other reason why I feel that the other Tentacle reduced that stress was also because when you solve puzzles midway, there'll be some in-game cutscenes. And the in-game cutscenes not only explain the story, but it also explains the puzzles sometimes. And of course, it's also for funnies, right? It's for funny scenes. Like, for example, I remember Hoagie having to drag a mattress, I think, on the attic. And then you see two people below the floor actually commenting on that, right? I think we have a moose upstairs or something like that. And I thought, that they didn't have to do that. But it added so much to the whole identity and flavor of the Tentacle, on top of it being so easy to understand when it comes to cause and effect, right? Like, for example, sometimes you go into this random room and then they will cut into this particular character, and then the character will mention something about what that person wants or what that person does. Like, for example, you have a lady who's knitting the American flag, right? So even if you have not entered that room before, you know that she exists. And most of the time it is because she is someone very important for the puzzle, right? And I thought all these cutscenes midway, it proves to me that the people who made the game took their sweet time to took their time with the game, to pour their love into the game, to make sure that everyone understands the cause and effect of every single element of the puzzle. And I thought that's what made it leaps ahead compared to a lot of other point and click adventure games.
Like, it gave it enough time to give it, like you said, the love it deserves, the affection it deserves, and the attention that it deserves as well.
Yeah, exactly. And they also understand that the user might not be able to understand everything, right? Now, modern game developers, we take the shortcut. If the person doesn't understand it, we just throw a tutorial, right? But the folks at LucasArts at the time, they were very smart when it comes to progressively putting in hints, even though the trigger for it might not be completely related to what you're doing at the current moment, but it just stored somewhere in your memory. So one day, I just remembered that lady actually is making a flag, so you have to change the flag over there. So it's like everything is just interrelated, and that's what time traveling is about. The UX of time traveling is to make everything interrelated, right? Everything just interrelates with each other. Whatever you affect will affect the future, and it's just brilliant. Yeah, the whole design of the game is so brilliant. And I can go on. I think we did a 5-hour podcast. Okay, I'll keep it short. The other thing that I really love about the game is I think the artist's name is Peter. Is it Peter Chan? I think.
I'm going to look
so Peter. Up. Yeah, Peter Chan is the artist, and he actually also was involved with. I think he was involved with the previous games as well. So was playing Monkey Island.
Yeah, Peter Chan.
And Peter Chan, right? Yeah. So Peter Chan. So I was playing games like Indiana Jones, and also Monkey Island as well. And I love those games, but sometimes it's very, very hard to tell what is interactable, and sometimes it's very hard to tell what is significant to the puzzle and what is not. And also because of the technology at the time, so everything looks very pixelated, so everything looks slightly low quality, right? So I do recall Peter Chan saying something about trying to simplify the graphics for the other Tentacle so that everything pops up better. And I totally agree with that. It really popped up better. It felt like you're really playing a Saturday morning cartoon And even with the technology at the time, which is really pixelated, you can actually really tell what is significant to the puzzle and what is not significant, what pops out, what doesn't. And that reduces a lot of the stress of playing a point and click game, because usually when I play point and click adventure games, I'm usually very careless. I skip certain objects, right? So when I'm very stuck, I will always go to every single room and go through every pixel one by one with my cursor, right? So you just go one, then okay, from the top left to the top right, and then you go to the next row, then go to the left, and then you go to the next row again. So you're like scanning for objects that you can interact with. Day of the Tentacle actually reduced that stress for me as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that sort of art style of the game, that very cartoony style of the game. If I, like the way we've been talking about, Day of the Tentacle for the past, half hour, 40 minutes or so now, and like, you're coming up talking of your love of games and stuff like that there and whatnot. There's a theme that's coming across here, is that you love cartoony stuff, basically. Not just Day of the Tentacle, but also stuff like, Saturday morning cartoons. And also, it'd be remiss as well if I didn't mention, you mentioned Battletoads as well, and like that just got a modern reboot, and that's very Saturday morning cartoony reboot. If there's one thing that's coming across here, is that you have a very massive fondness for basically cartoons. Maybe not necessarily just in games, but like definitely that anyway, at least.
I think what's more accurate is I have more epiphany towards things that don't take themselves seriously, if that makes any sense. So
yeah,
I also love games like Jet Set Radio and Space Channel 5. Those games plus Day of the Tentacle and Team Schafer games have affected my game design a lot, and also affected my cousin's way of doing art direction and all that. And that's how No Straight Roads came about, our debut game, right? So I think back in the old days, people, they usually don't take themselves seriously, and that is the genius of Day of the Tentacle as well. It is a huge crisis, time travel, but all the game wants you to do is to go to yesterday and switch off the pollution pipe, to switch off the sewage, right? Because or else the tentacle will grow hands, the purple tentacle will grow hands, and he will take over the world. It's like, that is the most ridiculous plot for a time traveling story I've ever heard, but it's so awesome. And also, I think the team had a great sense of mismatching their setting with their characters and all that. Like, for example, you have a heavy metal rock dude talking with George Washington, and it's like you should have the genius guy in the future. Typically you would do that, but they just mismatch characters with the setting and all that on purpose. And the three friends in Day of the Tentacle are also very mismatched as well, right? They're so colorful. So everything just, to me, it's all about not taking things seriously is what I really love about Tim Schafer's and Dave Grossman's work.
So yeah, I mean, like touching upon that, then, like the writing, like you say, it doesn't take itself very seriously.
Yeah,
it basically goes off on, for the lack of a better term, sort of the sort of crazy, sort of zany, not so serious story. Like talk to me about that. I mean, like we mentioned it in bits then there, but like go into detail about that, like how you found that.
I think what makes Day of the Tentacle shine compared to some other games that are totally ridiculous is that although the writing is ridiculous, or should I say the overarching plot is ridiculous, but the stakes are real. Hoagie is stuck in the past, Laverne is stuck in the future, and Bernard wants his friends back, right? And Dr. Fred also is scared of the purple tentacle, and all the stakes are actually real. So you can actually feel the motivation of all these characters. And although the writing is ridiculous, but it feels very human, right? You know that there are some things at risk here, right? And you can, and even if the purple tentacle is going to take over the world, in the future, but Laverne's motivation is to get out of there because she is viewed as a slave in the future, right? So one thing that I really like about the writing of the game is that the cause and effect, something that I think a lot of game developers, even I'm guilty of this as well, is to connect the dots when it comes to cause and effect. The writing is done in such a great way where you actually know what every character wants in the game, right? What needs to, and that also flows to what needs to be done in the game as well, because point-and-click adventures are usually a bit like MMORPG quests, right? You're trying to fulfill some quests, but instead of getting money, you get inventory instead of money and experience points, right? And I think the writing was done so seamlessly through the characters. So usually in some point-and-click games, you will only get to know the motivation of the person only when you talk to that person, right? But in this particular case scenario, it's sometimes not that obvious. And it's so seamless and it just goes into the corner of your head. And then there are a lot of times in Day of the Tentacle where it just clicks and say, oh yeah, I just remembered that the girl wants the tree to disappear, so I need George Washington to cut the cherry tree, but darn, the cherry tree is not a cherry tree, so I have to paint it red. So the genius of the game is that the cause and effect is being planted into your head the whole time, but sometimes you don't know what is the effect or why is it very important at first, right? And then you only know the significance of that motivation later on when you try to solve the puzzles. So yeah, the writing, I think, to me is for both purposes, for game design purposes and also for just the zaniness and the humor. It just gels well together. So in terms of like a package itself, it's not just a horrible game with a very zany story, but the zaniness actually leads to good game design and the other way around as well. So yeah, as a game designer, I'm very impressed with the game.
How do you think sort of Lucas and Schaefer and everyone else involved with the team, like, so how do you think they sort of managed to come up with a sort of loop that involved those things that you just mentioned? That's those zany sort of story, the cartoony aspect, and the puzzle design that the game had. How do you think they managed to achieve such a loop that feels cohesive and whole?
So this is just my interpretation because I don't know them personally, of course, but I feel that they know that they are humans, and people who are going to play the game are also human beings, right? So as much as you want to be ridiculous and entertain people, they also understand the concept of stress and fun factor, and also entertainment value, and also the understanding of reasoning, right, and all that. So there are a lot of different game designers in this world, or creators. So we have like Kojima, for example. So Kojima is just crazy.
Oh no, that we can pretty much ascertain. If Metal Gear does not show that, Death Stranding definitely did in some form. It wasn't just tied to Metal Gear.
Yeah, exactly. So the common factor was Kojima's craziness, right?
and by the way, I'll add to Kojima, Yoko Taro, especially near Automata.
Oh yes, Yoko Taro as well. Yes, definitely. But yeah, I feel like Tim Schafer has that weirdness, but with groundedness. If that makes any sense,
yeah.
So it's like they're I don't know whether it's Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer affected the team, but I feel that looking at Tim Schafer's charisma and the way he conducts himself, and also the way he talks to his team, I can feel that he has really influenced his team to be thinking outside of the box, but at the same time bring them back a bit, and to tell them that, hey, I'm feeling a bit of stress here. And I do recall there was one developer commentary where they mentioned that the opening of the game might be too long, right? So I think Tim Schafer wanted to put in an interactive sequence in between, right? So that is Tim Schafer thinking on behalf of the user, right? So it's not just ridiculous for ridiculousness sakes, but for the entertainment value, and entertainment value comes in two. Is divided into two, right? One is just to be entertained, but the other one also is not to be stressed out, because when you feel stressed out, then the entertainment value goes down as well. So yeah, I feel that even in terms of management, in terms of the Kickstarter project, everything, Tim Schafer just feels like he touches upon the. Oh my god, I'm sounding like some deep psychological kind of professor or something. But yeah, he touches upon the humanity aspect of his game design and his team management very well. Yeah.
We've touched upon those two out of three elements that you mentioned there in detail. The third one being the design of the game, the puzzle designs, especially. Yeah, like go into that a little bit, like how you find that.
I'm still very surprised that you haven't played the game.
It's so for context before we started, me and Haz and Dave Scammell, who's the PR manager for Metronomik here in the UK, we were all sitting here and discussing the game and all that there, and I had to confess I've not played the Tentacle. So yeah, sorry. Go on.
No,
I can't
everyone
play
should play them. No, you should play the Tentacle, man. Forget everything that you're doing right now, okay? Just play but the puzzle design, as I mentioned just now, it plays upon its core strength very well, which is time traveling, right? One of the reasons why people love Back to the Future a lot was because I feel that every change that happens feels very local. And I think that is why some people didn't like Back to the Future 2, because Back to the Future 2, you're changing an entire timeline, right? Whereas Back to the Future 1, it was just about his family. And but whatever it is, that feeling where you're looking at a newspaper and the headlines change depending on your contribution to all changing the timeline. That particular feeling of reward is inserted into the puzzle design of the Tentacle. Like one of my favorite puzzles, I think this is a very, very typical favorite of a lot of people, is that Laverne needed a disguise in the future, because in the future, Purple Tentacle has already ruled the world and all humans are slaves. And the thing is that she needs a disguise. And then, coincidentally, in the past, there's also, what was her name again? Was it Betty Ross, the one who created the American flag, right? And what you had to do was Laverne had to take a tentacle chart, because she acted like she was sick. So she went to the doctors, and then there was a chart, there was a human chart, by the way, which was inaccurate. It was quite cool because tentacles don't know how humans actually work. But and then there was a tentacle chart as well. So she had to take the tentacle chart, send it to the past, and then replace the American flag design with the tentacle chart. And then now the American flag became the tentacle itself in the future, and that's where you can. Sorry, a bit of a spoiler there, right? Especially for you, Johnny.
No, it's fine. You're really good. You go ham on spoilers. It's worth saying that much. It's been what, nearly 20 odd years. No, 30 odd years at this point. I mean, go full ham for all of us. For all I care at this point.
But yeah, I mean, that level of changing the entire American flag just so that you can disguise yourself in the future is, to me, it screams hilarity, it screams zaniness, and at the same time, it felt like something that would satisfy what Laverne wants at the current moment. Like, Laverne is a crazy lady. She doesn't even care whether the American flag changes or not. She just wants to disguise herself as a tentacle. So, yeah, it's just little things that make the puzzle design so unique, and you can actually see the change happening in the game. But unlike Back to the Future, which is a linear form of entertainment, right? So whatever Doc Brown and Marty McFly does, it will change the newspaper headline. So yeah, you feel that it's entertaining, it's delightful, but it stops there. But for the Tentacle, it is you who is actually doing it, right? So to be able to see all these changes based on your contribution to the game, and it felt like so rewarding, right? And yeah, a lot of the puzzle designs are based on that, on top of very, very simple puzzles like, so if you have everything based on time traveling, then there will not be what we call in Japanese merihari. Merihari means to have things, to have the graph go up and down,
Basically,
right?
tipsy-turvy.
Tipsy-turvy, yeah. So if you have everything based on time traveling, that will be boring. So there will be some very simple puzzles, like to make a person sleep, you have to pour decaf coffee instead of coffee, and all that. So we have all these very, very simple puzzles in between the huge time traveling puzzles, yeah. And that balance of the Merihari, I think, worked very well for Nursery. Sorry, for the other Tentacle.
Considering the sort of time travel aspect of the Tentacle, is there any other games that you think have done sort of time travel as well alongside David Tentacle? Like for me, speaking for me anyway, like I think there is. You mentioned the words cause and effect earlier, which
Yep.
immediately sprung to mind effect and cause, and in turn, Titanfall 2. It's not necessarily a time travel game.
That's cool.
It uses time travel as a mechanic. It's
Yep. Yes. Time travel. Wow. But I don't know which games did it as great as Day of the Tentacle though.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's really I don't know. I was thinking of Prince of Persia for a while there, where you can actually reverse time, but that's not really a big deal, like compared to the other Tentacles. It's a plot device itself, right? So yeah, actually, I don't know any good games that
you can interpret it any way you want, like as part of the gameplay, not just part of the story.
Right. But even so, yeah. Do you know any games apart from Titanfall 2 that uses time travel? Yeah, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? Okay, I can say it's not related at all, but I mean, using the concept of time to do a platforming game, I would say Jonathan Blow did it very well with Braid. Yeah. Braid, I think is another game that I really, really love. And Jonathan Blow is I'll have what he's having as well. Because I've played The Witness as well. Oh my god, that game is so deep. And Braid is so deep as well. And yeah, Braid also plays around with the concept of time very, very well. But instead of the typical concept of you affecting the past and all this stuff, it's more like the concept of time being linear, right? And to play with its linearity was something that I really admired in Jonathan Blow's design. Oh yeah. I want to talk about one more thing. Sorry, do you mind?
Go.
Okay, there's one more thing that's very related to our current game, No Stray Roads. Because No Stray Roads, Daim and I, we insist. My cousin Daim and I, insisted that that we have a lot of dynamic music in the game, where it actually plays along with whatever you're experiencing in the game, right? Like for example, if the boss is winning if the enemy is winning at the current moment, then it'll be EDM. If you're winning, it'll be rock. And a lot of people actually, I guess, how would I say this? Underestimated the power of dynamic music in video games, because the weird thing is in the 90s, especially for LucasArts, dynamic music was the thing that made their game shine. As well, for example, X-Wing.
Yeah.
Right, the music was so dynamic, man. It's like if there's no enemy in space, then it'll be a very calm music, and then it slowly merges into the Imperial March, right? When the Star Destroyers start hyperspacing into the space. So it's like Day of the Tentacle also did that very, very well. If I recall, one of the composers was Peter McConnell, and he and I think two other composers. So they made it such a way that there's a little loop in the music. So when you get out of the room, you can still feel a bit of the ambience of the previous room, but it just loops once and then it goes into the loop of the current room. So it's very, very comedic in a way, and at the same time, it was very, very charming, right? Because every room actually had a very distinct tune to them, especially when it comes to Hoagie's past level. There are a lot of historical kind of music like that, like American national anthem or whatever. So when it slowly fades out to the new room, that was actually a very, very immersive experience. So I really love the dynamic music in LucasArts and also Team Schafer games as well.
Obviously, kind of talking today the Tentacle, talking about the sort of remaster. Have you played that at all?
I've played remastered. Yes, I played twice.
What did you think of it? Do you think it held up relatively well to the original?
Oh, definitely. I mean, to be honest with you, even if it was just the pixel version, of the game, I think it will still hold out very, very well. I guess maybe for young people, they want to see more high-res graphics. And also, there were a lot of details that were added into the remastered. Like, for example, I remember Bernard reading a letter, and it was all just scribbles. And they actually added the words into the letter when it became HD, remastered. So I appreciated all that detail, and also the making it more full screen. The remastered version is very well done, and I guess the other thing that was very old was the interaction, the Scum engine's interaction with verbs, right? Like move to, use, and all that, right? So they took that out, and then they made the whole entire level full screen. Of course, you can also opt to have that the old UI in as well. But I thought that was really, really nice as well. So it felt like because I love Broken Age as well. So I do recall Broken Sword was also kind of full screen, wasn't it? You remember?
I'm trying. No, I can't remember for the life of me. Yeah.
But I think Toonstruck was also full screen. I think there was only when you click the item, then the verbs appear or something like that. Yeah. So I thought the other Tentacle this time around, it was very nice because you can actually now you're really watching a Saturday morning cartoon, right? Everything is just full screen. Yeah, and I think the animation, they didn't change much. They just high-res it a bit. So I feel that it still goes very well. When Hoagie goes on idle, he will burp. So it's still very charming by itself. But yeah, I like the fact that they took the extra mile to do the remaster. And I think one more thing that they worked on, because I was playing it with developers commentary as well. And also watched the making of the game. I think the music for the game and the voices, they were too compressed if they just take the file size as it is. So they actually dug up their old tapes, right? And of course, the tapes are not labeled well. For example, although it's labeled Bernard, but there are 3 voices inside the same tape. So they actually went through the voices one by one. And then, so they took the uncompressed version of the tape and then they put that all together again. Oh my God, I'm like, just listening to that alone, I'm like, oh my God, I stopped being a game developer if I have to do this. But yeah, the amount of effort that they took to remaster the game, it's already a very charming game, and yet they pushed it further. So yeah, really hats off to Double Fine Productions. Yeah. It's really.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what modern point-and-click games, like since Day of the Tentacle, sort of stood out for you as sort of, these are great games for the genre as well? Like, what stood out for you? You mentioned obviously Broken Age as well. Yeah,
Broken Age. Yeah, Broken Age was because Broken Age, I feel that the charm of the game is actually the twist. I'm not going to mention it, but yeah, the twist kind of changes the whole entire perspective of how the game is. Puzzles, unfortunately, I still prefer the old games puzzles. So like Day of the Tentacle, for example. But Broken Age was really a good, challenge for Double Fine Productions as well to make a new point-and-click game. If you're talking about modern point-and-click games, I think that's very difficult. I would say that the games I'm very interested now that is close to a point-and-click game are games like Phoenix Wright or Danganronpa, where the point-and-click game is actually more simplified to just presenting evidence to the court. I used to watch a lot of those courtroom drama series.
I know. Like stuff like not necessarily courtroom drama, but like something like Judge Judy or something.
Yeah, correct. Yes. I forgot Law and Order, of course, and a few others. Yeah, so to change that into a point-and-click kind of genre was quite interesting. So And Danganronpa put it even further by putting in a battle royale murder mystery, turning into a courtroom game. So I really like that. So yeah, if you're talking about modern point and click adventure, I would say Phoenix Wright and Danganronpa. Yeah, I really love those games.
It's interesting you mentioned Danganronpa, because then there's another Japanese sort of point and click game that sort of comes to, well, I don't know about call point and click. It seems more like of a visual novel than anything. But like, what about the Zero Escape games?
Oh yeah, right. Like 999, for example,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I still prefer Danganronpa, to be honest. But I think that 1999 gave me a very bad impression because I mean I love the idea of the game because it's a bit like a, what do you call that? Like a escape room, right? It's like an escape room but turned into a proper story and with multiple rooms. And every path that you take might be different, right? So you go through different rooms in different cycles of the game. But the problem is I have to solve all the puzzles again, which was so ridiculous. Right? It's like after I die on the first round, then I go to the second round and I have to solve all the puzzles again in the same room. So I thought that was really ridiculous. I was playing the 999 on the Nintendo DS at the time, and it was really it turned me off a bit. So compare that with Phoenix Wright, and after that Danganronpa, I was more attracted to those games.
What about Western sort of point and click games? The obvious sort of assumption, especially when you tie it into sort of LucasArts as well, is Telltale, like stuff like Back to the Future, as well as something like The Walking Dead, Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy. What about those?
I mean, yeah, I did play Back to the Future. I think out of all the Telltale games, of course I'm being biased here because I love the movie. So Back to the Future was nice. It's I have to say though that I still preferred Phoenix Wright because although you're playing a Saturday morning cartoon, it felt a bit more difficult when it comes to the cause and effect relationship of the puzzles in the game. So a few of them are very smart, but I felt that the modern point and click adventure, sometimes they just ask you what to do, and sometimes the relationship between the puzzle and the actual motivation of the character in the game, sometimes it doesn't match very well, in my opinion. Okay, but yeah, because I'm very spoiled by the LucasArts days of Day of the Tentacle and Full Throttle and all that. The puzzles in those games, and Grim Fandango as well. Let's not forget Grim Fandango, man. So the puzzles in those games were really, really good. So it kind of spoiled me. So I was expecting that kind of standard when I play this kind of point and click. So Phoenix Wright, I do not expect that kind of standard because it's a very different structure. Right, you just have to read the testimony, and you just have to present the correct evidence to the right testimony, right? So it's a much more straightforward cause and effect compared to point and click games. Point and click games, we have this global space with many things interacting with each other. So if the relationship chart is not done correctly, then it will confuse many people. And when I play these games, even Back to the Future, as much as I really love the setting and sometimes the puzzles can be quite difficult. Like I might be getting more stupid by the year. I don't know. I might be a more brilliant child when I was 16 years old, but I think some of the puzzles in those games are very difficult. What do you think of Telltale games? Yeah, I would like to know your.
I think like the only real one that I had a massive vested interest with was The Walking Dead. At least the first season, anyway. I loved the first season of The Walking Dead, but it was just that first season. Oh no, I tell a lie. It wasn't just the first season of The Walking Dead. Tales from the Borderlands as well was fantastic. Like it's
fantastic. Okay. I should play that game then.
Like here's the thing: I'm not too into Borderlands. Like I've played a good chunk of Borderlands 1 and 2. Yep. And like they're okay games, they're fine, I guess. But Tales from the Borderlands is just absolutely phenomenal. It makes you sort of somewhat relate the characters in these games, like what Troy Baker and Laura Bailey did with their characters, and it was just phenomenal writing in that game as well. Like some really seminal moments as well. It's like genuinely fantastic, especially for someone who is not as tuned into the Borderlands franchise as I am. It's utterly phenomenal. But I wouldn't even necessarily say that or The Walking Dead would be my favorite point and click. If the one I would cite And this is one of my top 10 games, although I don't know necessarily if you would call point and click, although there are point and click elements to it, as much as it is probably an adventure game, but it also sort of uses time as a concept as well.
Let me guess. Is the one that you control the girl in the school? Oh my god, the one that you can reverse time and just a bit, right? Oh my god, it's not coming to my head. Hold on. Oh my god, I love that game as well. My goodness, I can't believe I cannot remember the name. Okay, I give up. What's the name?
Life is Strange.
Life is Strange. Yes, sorry. Yes. Oh yeah, come to think of it, when it comes to time mechanics, yeah, Life is Strange is really well done as well. It's like if you open the cabinet, although you're not really affecting it much, but it's proof that you have tampered with the scene, right? Yeah, those were actually really, really genius. And oh my god, episode 2.
Man, you have no idea. The day someone comes on to talk about Life is Strange on the show, it's going to be a 5-hour podcast. 1 hour for each episode.
Yeah, actually, I was actually about to mention that game as well. Life is Strange. I think I put it in a point and click adventure. It's just that it's more analogous, I guess, in a way. So it does border to adventure, like 3D adventure, right? But yeah, Life is Strange is also a very nice package, isn't it? Like with the music and the whole emotional roller coaster, and everything felt so real as well. I actually spoke with the developers because they're also under Square Enix, right? So we met at E3 as well, and I spoke with them. The way they presented the game as well it felt so human. It was so humble as well. Yeah, so I really enjoyed myself playing Life is Strange. I was very, very emotionally invested in the game. Maybe too much.
So was I, to be fair. So I don't think you're the only one who wasn't.
Yeah, that second episode really got me, man. Seriously, I mean, I'm like, one of the most difficult moments of gaming, in my opinion.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Like definitely. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned those sort of escape rooms as well, in terms of sort of modern point and click. Have you played by any chance TikTok: A Tale for Two?
TikTok: A Tale for Two? No, yes. No, I have not. I've not even heard of it.
It's a very point and click driven game that is sort of escape room based. In fact, we did an episode of one of the other podcasts on Play Diaries, Press Play, with the developers on it, Other Tales Interactive. And how sort of the point and click escape room sort of motif sort of inspired the game. It's on Switch and iPad and PC, so iOS.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me write that on my phone. Sorry, hold on. TikTok. What? Sorry, TikTok.
TikTok: A Tale for Two.
TICKTOCK, right?
TICKTOCK.
Yeah, not the social media.
Yes. I get that confused sometimes, to be fair.
This episode, okay, I will definitely play this.
This episode of My Favorite Game has been brought to you by TikTok: A Tale for Two, and TikTok. When 15 seconds isn't enough, you do 60 seconds to whatever. No, I give up. This is next.
There's a lot of money coming in then.
This is next response. Just to put that out there.
Okay, I'll look into it. Yeah, I'm sorry to say I've never heard of this game at all. Wow, this is so. Either I lived in a cave for so long, or it's just underrated.
Yeah, Tanya Mayer, you owe me a mention here. No, I'm joking.
There was another run, isn't it? I still have yet to play it. I heard the music in there is really good. It's called Paradise Killer.
Oh, I've heard very good things about that. Very good.
Yeah. I was planning to play it sometime next week or something. Yeah, it seems like very Phoenix Wright-ish as well, but with all the JoJo poses, all the I am awesome kind of poses, right? Yeah, so so looking forward to that as well.
All right, so going back into Day of the Tentacle, then. What do you like about the game that we've not touched upon yet?
Wow, so many. um, I guess the other thing that I liked, but this is more like me being a Malaysian, is that I learned a lot of American references through the other Tentacle as well. Like, I don't know whether it's really an American thing, but there's a puzzle where it's a very weird cause and effect, but it was played very well in the game, which is you have to wash the car first, then only rain will come. Right? So it's like one of those, like, if you wash your car, it will definitely rain, it will dirty your car again, that kind of joke, right? So at the time, it didn't really click with me because in Malaysia, it rains every day, almost.
Same here.
Oh yeah, London, of course. UK, right? Learning all these American cultural references in the game was also quite interesting. And it is, I like how the game is just really very American, right? Like, for example, Hoagie going through the past, you have to understand that George Washington lied about a cherry tree and all this. And I was lucky enough to watch enough cartoons to understand that. But I'm very sure some people do not see the relationship. Like, for example, my Japanese wife, we actually both played the other Tentacle together, and she totally didn't get the reference of having George Washington to chop the cherry tree. So that culture differences, I think, what makes it interesting. So I like it when games do not shy away from putting in their own identity or culture, right? And there are a lot of American cartoons that do that as well. Like, for example, Ed, Ed and Eddie, for example, is so American neighborhood, right? And all these games, Full Throttle and all this also, it feels so American.
Oh yeah,
Right?
like
Yeah.
especially feels very American to me.
Yeah, exactly. Going through the the route, I forgot what it's called already. That long highway, was it Route 66, something like that? But it's just and as a Malaysian, I feel some sort of culture, not to say culture shock, but you can really feel the differences between their game design or the way they tell the story compared to how we tell our stories, right? So I really appreciated that difference. I really love the fact that they're just not shy to put in whatever they feel like putting in. Yeah.
What didn't you like about Day of the Tentacle?
Ho. None. No, just kidding. Okay. If I say that, I'll fail as a game developer. There are some puzzles which were quite, I guess, hard to understand at first, right? Like, for example, I think, this is also my fault because, I didn't have a big brain at the time. But, like, for example, when you have Benjamin Franklin flying the kite, right? I was expecting to put something metallic in the kite so that he will discover electricity or something like that, right? But the thing is that you had to put in a battery, which I did not have yet. So there were some parts of the game where you kind of jumped the gun a bit, and you thought that the solution was this, and you struggle a lot. So, for example, the kite for Benjamin Franklin, that was a bit quite difficult to handle in terms of the UI, because you have to go into this little cutscene every single time you experiment with the kite. So every trial and error comes with that cutscene. So it can be very, very stressful sometimes. And also there are times when you kind of use the verb on certain items, but because you click on the wrong pixel, you interact with the wrong thing, and you thought that's the only thing in that area, right? Like, for example, I remember there was a mailbox and there was a flag. So the mailbox and the flag, right? By the way, I think that's a very, very Western thing. We don't have that kind of thing in Malaysia. But so I was trying to click the mailbox, but I accidentally clicked the flag instead. So what happened was Hoagie put up the flag, and there was a very, very fast delivery man whooshing across the screen. And the thing is, I didn't click it again because I thought that was the effect. So I thought I had to send stuff. Little did I know that you can actually interact with the mailbox, and you can open the mailbox and there's a letter inside, right? So I thought that whole entire area was the mailbox itself. So I totally missed that, So yeah, sometimes the pixel hunting existed still in the other Tentacle, but it's very minor compared to the other games, though. Mm-mm. And the other thing is, I guess there was very little tutorial, which I think is also a good thing in the 90s. But I didn't know that you can actually drag inventory to the chronojon to the profile picture. Let's say, for example, if you're controlling Burnett, then you can actually drag something to Lavern's profile that you will send the item automatically to Laverne. I thought that you had to travel all the way to the chronojon, the toilet, which is another amazing idea, by the way. That was brilliant, where you have to flush down the inventory to the other time line, right? I thought so. I had to. So for the longest time, I traveled all the way to the toilet to flush things down and to the other timeline. Where when I didn't know that you can actually just drag the item to the face, you were able to just pass it automatically. So I did too much walking, basically, too much and more than necessary. Yeah.
What would you change from a sort of design perspective then? Like, is there anything within the game you change?
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's a difficult one. Nothing. That's why it's my favorite game, isn't it?
True. That's fair.
But well, a little tutorial about that, about reducing the stress would be nice, of course. I would love to see more, for sure, like more time traveling puzzles as well. Right? Yeah. Because time traveling puzzles, there are a few, but it's still, if I were to design it, I would definitely put a whole lot more. But again, it might affect the Mary Hari, the tipsy-turvy, right? Yeah. So that's why I don't really dare to say that I would like to do that entirely. But yeah, I mean, adding more puzzles would be great. Well, in other words, I just want more. Yeah, I mean, because I love it so much. Yeah.
The funny thing that was sort of the through line that I've sort of sussed through over the past nearly hour we've talked about, the Tentacle, is the sort of cartoony nature, the sort of how it doesn't take itself so serious style of its story, and all that. There, is there a lot of influence in that from the Tentacle within No Straight Roads? Because it feels like, from what I've played of No Straight Roads, there's definitely that's there.
Yeah, No Straight. I mean, Daim and I, my co-founder, the creative director Daim and I, we're big fans of Tim Schafer games. Okay, and and we're also big fans of the Dreamcast era, and the PS2 era as well, where we have like Sly Cooper, right? I remember Peter Chan was also worked on Sly Cooper, not as the main artist though, but yeah, you can actually see the cartoonic nature of Sly Cooper, right? And then Jet Set Radio, which was, it's the plot is ridiculous. Space Channel 5 is ridiculous, right? So those were the days where everything was just ridiculous. Guitar Man was the other one I really love as well. Yeah, so the whole entire feeling of zaniness, not sticking to a certain, how to say, not sticking to a certain popular art genre, right? Because typically, indie developer, like in Malaysia, sometimes we would come up with something very anime-like, right? A lot of the art students that graduated from colleges here, they do a lot of anime-like characters, and we thought, no, we want to do something stupid and zany and crazy. Yeah, so we made sure that I think Daim also, when he was in charge of the plot, together with ID, another cousin of ours, they also made sure that the story had real motivations, just like the other Tentacle, but having a zany, strange icing on top, right? So Dare the Tentacle, definitely a huge influence in our game.
Top 3 LucasArts games, what would they be? Obviously, Dare the Tentacle at top, but how else would you follow 2 and 3?
Woohoo! Let me think. Oh God. Hold on, just give me a minute. It's not easy, man. To be honest, Johnny, when you invited me for this favorite games podcast, right? I also had a tough time to be honest. Dear Tentacle is definitely a favorite, but it's just that, I have a lot of favorites as well. So it's like, yeah, it was a tough decision to make. But for LucasArts, oh gosh, I guess number 2 is TIE Fighter. Number 3 would be Full Throttle.
That is an acceptable list. That is acceptable. I will accept that. That is a very...
What would you find unacceptable then?
No, I'm joking. I'm just sorry. Honorable mentions. Go for it.
One of the toughest answers, one of the toughest questions in all my media interviews is, what is your favorite game?
That's why I asked it about an hour ago.
Thank you. I will just refer them to this podcast then for the answer. Yeah, making my life easier. Thank you. I usually separate them to genres when I mention my favorite games. So starting from, obviously I worked in Square Enix, so naturally I love my JRPGs. My favorite being Final Fantasy VII and also Skies of Arcadia. So Final Fantasy VII, obviously, it was my first love when it comes to RPGs because my father didn't get me a console at all. So PlayStation 1 was the very first console I bought with my own money. And the reason why I bought that console was because in the mall, you can actually rent a PlayStation for around £2 an hour. And you can play whatever game that you want in the whole shop. The game that I really enjoyed a lot was Parappa the Rapper. But I got through that very quickly. And the shopkeeper recommended me Final Fantasy VII. So I thought I popped that in. And I really loved the world a lot, to the point that I bought the PlayStation 1 just for that game. So yeah. And that was my first RPG, by the way. Surprisingly enough, I didn't play a lot of RPGs on the PC, like Ultima and all that. I don't know why. I was so gullible. I was so naive. Because it came with 3 discs, right? If I'm not mistaken, the original PlayStation. So I thought the game was only in the first disc, and the other 2 were like soundtrack CDs or something like that. So when I completed Midgar, the first arc, I thought that was a game. That's it, because I had no experience with RPGs, So I thought that was a game. That's it.
That was it. If you're playing the remake.
The remake, yeah. So the remake was actually my first impression of Final Fantasy VII. And then when I found out that there was an overworld, I'm like, what the heck is this? I just finished like 10% of the game. So that was quite interesting experience. Skies of Arcadia was really, for me, what made the Dreamcast the golden era for me, because Skies of Arcadia was such a charming RPG. Final Fantasy VII, it's charming. I really love the game and the world, but you can get depressed playing the game. Yeah, and with all the lingo and all sort of Genova and all this stuff, right? So Skies of Arcadia was that light-hearted RPG that I've always wanted, to play, and it was so charming because it was designed for many types of gamers, right? So you can customize your own island as well. There are ship battles. It's like obviously it's like One Piece turned into a game. Because One Piece it romanticizes the concept of being a pirate, right?
Yeah.
Although being a pirate is a scum, it's like being a scum. But we have Monkey Island, we have Skies of Arcadia. So yeah, being pirate is great.
And yet you were pirating games as well, so it's sort of. I
I
brought
was
it
just a buyer.
back.
It's all coming back to full circle.
A pattern is
Oh,
starting to
God.
emerge here.
Oh no. So for people who pirated our game No Straight Roads, I understand. But please buy original. Okay, anyway. In terms of rhythm games, I have two types. One is the hardcore, because I've been playing rhythm games for 20 plus years. For 20 years already. I played since Beatmania 1 and I played Dungeons Revolution all the way till the rhythm games of today. My favorite casual rhythm game is Rhythm Heaven, followed by Space Channel 5. Yep. Well, Space Channel 5, Guitar Man, it's very easy to see why I love those games. And also Rhythm Heaven, right? It just felt there are two reasons why I love all these kind of rhythm games, because number one, again, it's humorous. It knows how to laugh at itself. It knows how to laugh with its users. Number two, you can almost imagine the developers showing their smuggy face when the rhythm gets more difficult. Right? Like for example, in Rhythm Heaven, there's a time where you're trying to push a pipe through a bolt or something like that, and they suddenly blind the whole entire screen and just show that one small window, right? And you can imagine like the game is like, what you gonna do about it now, huh? So that smug look of a game designer is something that I really look forward to sometimes when I play games. And Space Channel 5 also is the same. They sometimes change the beat a bit. They make the beat more. They make the beat shorter, right? They make the rhythm shorter and all this. Yeah, so it's really. I like that kind of. I don't know what it's called in the Western world, but it's just a smug face game design.
A very punchable small game design.
Yeah. In Japanese, it's called doyagao. So doyagao means like smug face. Yeah. So. Yeah. Apart from that, okay, platforming games. Sly Cooper. I love my Saturday morning cartoons, right? So. Sly Cooper is my favorite platforming game, followed by Klonoa. Go to Phantom. Yes. Someone, please make a sequel, please, of both games.
May I introduce you to Dan Pierce of 10 Second Ninja, Game Design Dan on Twitter. He has appeared on My Favorite Game before, and he talked of Klonoa 2 as his favorite game. And every now and then, he will tweet of his want and need to make Klonoa 3. I feel like I should introduce you two as a result of that.
Here's a little interesting tidbit, which is also unfortunate news for Dan. Is so we have friends in Bandar Namco. So we actually went to Japan before, and we presented the game to the Bandar Namco CEO, and also the game designer as well. And then when I asked about a potential sequel to Klonoa, they just laughed. And here's the exit, by the way. So yeah.
Oh, Perda. He's gonna be heartbroken when he hears this.
But that was 2 years ago, though. They might have changed their minds. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hope Springs.
But yeah, when I heard that for the first time, I'm like, oh, that was so sad to hear. Can hear my heart break, man. Yeah, it's like, yeah. So platformers, Klonoa game design is fantastic. Sly Cooper, actually, one of the levels in Sly Cooper inspired the design of No Straight Roads as well. Because No Straight Roads is a action game that is music centric. So the enemies actually follow the music, but you don't have to follow the music to the T, right? Because I feel that music is underutilized in video games. So there are so many other rules of music that can be applied in game design. So mostly it's just beats and rhythm, but there's also structure and all that that's not played well in video games yet. So there was one level in Sly Cooper where you go into this. There was this voodoo crocodile lady. I forgot what's her name. She's the third boss, I think, of Sly Cooper, the first one, and the Thievius Raccoonus. And there was a part where the teeth of the cave So the teeth of the cave looks like crocodile teeth, or alligator teeth, and it actually falls down based on the beat. But you don't have to jump exactly based on the beat. So I actually showed that video to my team when we started New Straight Roads pre-production. But anyway, Sly Cooper, the characters are zany as well, are crazy, and yet it's understandable why Sly Cooper wants his book back. So again, I just love it when the setting is weird, but the motivations are real. Yeah.
I want to go back to your sort of rhythm picks, especially the lack thereof mention of sort of harmonics games. I mentioned to you before about how I sort of saw No Straight Roads when we first chatted back at Res last year.
Yeah.
What I saw from No Straight Roads sort of inspired by what harmonics about, not necessarily with Guitar Hero or Rock Band as greatly influential as those games are, especially in terms of social gaming, but more games like Frequency and Amplitude. I'm sort of wondering how those games would sort of stack up to you as well.
Okay, those are what we call rhythm games, right?
Yeah.
But they are the sense of using how would I say this? How they synced the visual with the music was really well done, because I think the game designers were mostly musicians, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's what makes harmonics really great. Yeah, so I think that they know the soul of music very well, and that is something. Admittedly, for No Straight Roads, we're still learning. It's still a learning process, right? So I obviously Metronomik the team consists of mostly fresh graduates or people who are new to the game industry. So Metronomik was actually formed not only to make memorable games, but also to give opportunities to newcomers, right? So harmonics for me is like the team to aim for when it comes to rhythm sense or music sense when it comes to visuals. So for example, our animators really need to understand music properly. Our VFX artists also need to understand rhythm properly. So admittedly, we are not at the harmonics level yet. So we are still learning, and we hopefully in our future games also will. But yeah, harmonics is for us, it's like the benchmark when it comes to representing rhythm with visuals.
I think on that note, then, like before we sort of start to wrap this up, I think it's worth asking, like how much of that influence, that sort of, you sort of mentioned it there, but like how much of that harmonic sort of rhythm influence will inspire that next Metronomik game?
I think it's not only harmonics. I should also mention the Mizuguchi-san's.
Yes.
Yeah, like
yes.
Tetris Effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I fucking adore Res Infinite, like especially.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry, I digress. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, did you play Res Infinite?
I did. PSVR. Yeah. It was a religious experience. Akin to a religious experience, especially in Area X. So fucking good.
Area X is so good, wasn't it? And a game that deserves a remaster or just release it again was Child of Eden, man.
I would not complain. That was oddly one of the very few games using a Kinect that felt worthwhile. And I think that's something that's worth pointing out as well. Mizuguchi just knows how to utilize bespoke technologies to certain games like Kinect with Child of Eden, like PSVR with Res Infinite and Tetris Effect. Although admittedly I've still yet to use PSVR with Tetris Effect. He knows how to utilize that technology. Anyway, I digress. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
No problem. I mean, I can talk about Mizuguchi games all day as well. No problem. I can talk about Team Schafer. I can talk about Mizuguchi-san. Yes. So I think what Mizuguchi-san does very well is the concept of synesthesia, right? So harmonics, I guess because they make rhythm games, so they have a bit of a limitation, which is that the bar falling down has to be easily understandable, right? Whereas Mizuguchi-san kind of detached the rhythm aspect from the game design and decided to make it much more more immersive rather than accurate per se, right? And the way he represented, or should I say, the way he directed the team to represent the music with elements of human motivation. Like, for example, Child of Eden, one of my favorite levels was actually the Passion. I think it's called Passion Level 4, right? Where there was a purple and red ball fighting with each other. And then you can actually see the the evolution of technology through the whole entire level, right? Starting with cars, trains, and then at the end, they actually launch a rocket or something like that. So they showed like videos of people trying to fly and all that, you know. So I thought, wow, that's really a whole new level of how to represent rhythm. So it felt as if he was making how do you say, like a VJ, video jockey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with meaning,
Yeah.
with a whole lot of meaning and interaction, right? Luminous was also the same, and Tetris Effect. My God, that game made me fall in love with Tetris again, but for different reasons. So yeah, for the future of Metronomik, definitely, again, as I mentioned, we're putting not only harmonics, of course, but also Mizuguchi-san's games as the benchmark when it comes to visual representation of music. However, of course, we want to go a different step a bit, which is we don't only take rhythm and beats as the only element to play with when it comes to making our game design. So Mizuguchi-san detaches it, right? So he detached the game design with the rhythm, so it's more about immersion and all that. Harmonics goes the entire way around, right? Which is really attaching it to a rhythm game, correct? So we are trying to aim for the middle ground, rather, which is music still plays a role in the game design, but you do not have to become a rhythm gamer to enjoy the game. So what we are learning from the both of them is how to represent music with visuals, and we add one more game design layer to it. And yeah, hopefully, although admittedly, we're still on the way there, but hopefully with the future games, we get to be in the same group as Harmonix and also Mizuguchi-san.
It's just worth noting that something's just coming to my head. Have you actually played Fuser yet?
No, I would love to.
It's so good. It's really, really good.
Really?
It's there's nothing more not perfect, but there's nothing more enjoyable than a perfect drop as you get a good
I know what you mean. I know what you mean because the drop is also an important game element in those heroes as well. Because the drop is when the attack becomes more furious, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm looking forward to Fuser because another reason why I'm looking forward to Fuser, this is just a very, very personal little joke of mine, because I always like to act like I'm a DJ. So I will, although I have no idea on how to become a DJ, but I will take off my headphones and lift my hands, and then I will I will take one headphone out of one ear, and then like acting like I know I'm doing, but actually I don't. But hopefully Fuser will encourage me to at least teach me how to DJ, or at least I can act the part rather than just music coming out from my mouth.
Fake it until you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, man. Fuser.
Yeah. So, top 3 games ever. How would you rank them? Obviously, they had the Tentacle at the top, but like, how would you sort of rank
Oh my God! Stop, Johnny! Stop! Tough questions, man. Tough questions.
You can't see this for anyone listening, but you can't see this. I'm just sort of shuffling along my chair, and I sort of
You're evil. Okay. If that's the case, then I will say number 2 is. Can I put 2 games in one slot? Is that okay?
All right. Let's hear the argument at least.
Okay, FF7 and Skies of Arcadia is number 2.
Okay. I will accept that. Okay.
Yep. And number 3 would be Rhythm Heaven.
Okay. I would.
Yep. It's okay. I have 4 games though. Yeah, but.
I will allow this. I'll allow this.
Thank you. Or I mean, you just roll a die, and if it's odd, then it's FF7. If it's even, then it's Skies of Arcadia. Then. I'm the game director of No Straight Roads, and this being our debut game from Malaysia. We are Metronomik. We are based in Malaysia, and our team is comprised of mostly newcomers to the game industry. But we poured a lot of love. The team has poured a lot of love into the game. You can find some influences from Day of the Tentacle, the zaniness, and also the very concept of um, that the world is following the music, like musical Chinese games or harmonics, right? And the plot is also very zany. It's about you control an indie rock band trying to topple an EDM empire, and everything is very dynamic. It shows the music. You can use your ears to know the power balance of the game. For example, if the enemy is winning, then it's EDM centric. That if you're winning, then it becomes rock. So yeah, we have a lot of ideas in the game. So I hope that if you have not played it yet, do experience the humor and the zaniness and also the wonderful music in the game. And it's out for Epic Game Store, also on the PS4, on the Switch, and the Xbox One as well. No Straight Roads, everyone.
What about the social media stuff and all that there?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm very bad at marketing. That's why I have Dave. So yes, please follow us on social media at No Straight Roads on Twitter, and also just type in No Straight Roads on Facebook, and we also on Instagram as well, same No Straight Roads. You can also follow me, Wan Hazmer, on Facebook and Twitter as well. I do share some news on the game and also on Metronomik. Also, I've been starting my game stream recently, so I actually stream games while analyzing the game design and also introducing games made in Malaysia as well. So that's twitch.tv/Wanhazmer, WANHAZMER.
Thanks for listening to My Favorite Game, a podcast by Play Diaries where people in the games industry come on to talk of their favorite game. If you want to listen to future episodes of My Favorite Game or press play before they go live publicly, please consider subscribing to our $2 tier on Patreon at patreon.com/playdiaries. Next week, the season finale, Anissa Sanusi on Persona 5. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. Until next week, bye-bye.